Hello and welcome. My name is Lexi Jong, and here I like to talk about luxury makeup. Today we're going to talk about the NATASHA DENONA GLAM Face Palette. So this is my first time using it. These are first impressions today, and we're going to get ready together using this palette, and then I'll give you my thoughts at the end. So thank you so much, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Okay, so we are going to start with some primer. We're starting with the Dior Forever Skin Veil Primer. And I'm just going to put a little bit of this on. And then I'm also going to put on some eye primer. For eye primer, I'm going with the Viseart eye primer. And just a little dab here. And spread this on. For foundation, today we're going with the Sisleya Le Teint Foundation in 0R. Oh, you know what? I wanted to put on some concealer though, actually. Let's do that first. We're going to add the Tom Ford, and this is shade 0N0. And just gonna add a little bit here. And I'm going to let that sit while I go ahead and apply the foundation. So I'm going to use the Refer 31 brush. All right, so that's a light layer of the foundation. I'm going to take the Signature Jumbo Concealer and just kind of pat this in under the eyes. And then I'm going to add just the last of my foundation. So this is what I have left on my hand. I'm just going to add a little bit more here to my cheeks and just kind of, go over a little bit of that concealer for a smoother transition. Just taking what's left on my hand, just put on whatever's left. All right, so that's it for the base. So I have never used a face palette from NATASHA Denona. I know she's got some of those like smaller ones with the blush duos and stuff. I haven't tried any of them. Honestly, I've only tried like her eyeshadows essentially. So here is the Glam Face Palette. I picked up the light version and here it is. So we do have the plastic cover on top of the cream products here. It looks really pretty. I'm very curious to see how this performs. Let's start with a few swatches though. And let's see, this cream blush. Okay, so I had read that, people were saying that it's drier than some of her other formulas. And yeah, I mean, it's definitely a little bit firmer than I expected it to be. Just the highlight. All right, so that's definitely blingy. All right, these are the first three eyeshadows. I actually think this eyeshadow might be a better highlighter for me than the highlight shade. That one looks a little bit more gold than I would like, but we'll see. And last two. All right, so this is the light Glam palette. All right, we're gonna start off with the blush, and this is the Chikuhodo T3. This is one of my favorite brushes for cream products. And let me just take the sticker off the mirror. You can see that it's one of those like frosted stickers, which, I personally like those, having a channel, because I don't have to worry about blinding people by mistake. But yeah, let's go ahead and put this on. That definitely gives like more of a light natural look. I like it. All right, so I can definitely see how this cream blush, it's not quite what I expected. It is drier than I thought it was gonna be. It's more so that it's like firmer in the pan. So you can definitely build the color, but I was going in very cautiously because it is, you know, still like a pigmented shade. And I don't think you have to be as cautious with this just because it's firmer in the pan, so it's not as easy to pick up the product on the brush. So depending how you want to do it, fingers or a brush, you know, just keep in mind that it is a little bit firmer. Let's add the highlight. I'm gonna take the Sonia G Detail Pro into the highlight shade, the Star Glow, and let me just knock off a little excess. That really comes up easily. It's a pretty shift. All right, so there's the highlight. And let's move on to the eyeshadow. Starting off with the Refer 16, we're gonna go into the crease shade. So just like with the Glam palette, she has these things named as for where, you know, a recommended place to use them. So we've got crease, there's inner corner, transition, outer corner, and smoke. I'm going to take this Energy Worker 3 into the transition shade, and I'm going to put this on the mobile lid, sort of as a base. You can see this one has a little bit more of a pinky hue to it. And then we're going to go into smoke. We'll add this a little bit right here to the outer portion. Just taking the crease brush again, the Refer 16, and I did wipe it off, just going into that a little bit, drag a little bit of that smoke into it. And then for the lower lash line, I'm taking the Chikuhodo T8. I'm going to do a little bit of smoke on the outer portion here. Just kind of bring that up a little. And then next to that, I'm going to put crease under the rest of this. Okay, I wiped off the brush and I'm just going to blend these together a little bit. And I'm going to take the Sonia G Worker Pro into, let's go into outer corner here. And we're going to pat some of this on here. Just going to kind of spread that about halfway over. And I'm using a brush because I just want more of that sparse glitter, but you can go in with your finger to have a lot more bling. Okay, and let's try inner corner with the rest of that. And I'm going to use my finger here in inner corner just to get a little bit more, and I'm going to dab that right in the center. And with the T8, going to go into inner corner here and just add a little bit of this to the inner corner. All right, so that's this. And I think I'm going to finish off the upper lash line with a brown eyeliner. So I'm actually going to use the Byredo. This is one of their new sticks. This is Bora Bora, which is the brown. So I'm just going to put this on the upper lash line here. I have to say, these Byredo eye kajuls, I love how long this point is. And, you know, they're not super creamy, which actually makes them really easy to use and be a little bit more precise with. I'm just taking the Worker Pro and just gently smudging that just a touch. And let's go ahead and see what the blush looks like on the lips. So I'm going to use my finger for this, and I'm just going to get some pigment on here and see how this goes on. You know, I have to say it's interesting for a cream blush. You know, it feels like a firmer cream blush, kind of like the Rose Ink blushes. That's what it feels like texturally, but drier. And when I put it on my lips though, it actually feels more powdery, like a cream to powder type formula. It just doesn't feel that powdery on my cheeks to me. So I think that's kind of interesting. So you can see that using this on the lips, it does give you kind of like that drier, powdery finish to it. I think let's go ahead and add some lip gloss. So I'm just gonna add a little bit of the Tower 28 Clear Gloss here. Makes it much more comfortable for me because I like having that kind of like slip. And I think it looks a little bit better on the lips as well. It looks more hydrated. So I'm gonna do my brows and mascara. I'll see you in a second. So here's the final look from a distance. And you can see the sheen from the highlight and the way the blush looks. Very pretty. I do think though that this lip with this look, it just kind of washes the whole thing out. So I'm gonna change that real quickly. All right, so now I have on the Byredo Damson Jam lipstick very lightly. I blotted that afterwards, and then I topped it with the Tom Ford lip gloss in the buff. And I just think it just looks a little bit better. Now, my thoughts on the palette, I have to say I did have higher hopes for it than, yeah. I think it's a nice palette, and I like the concept of the palette. The colors are pretty. Unfortunately, it's just a little bit warmer in tone than I was hoping it would be. I love the NATASHA Denona Glam palette, and I know some people call those like cool neutrals and so forth. And yes, some of the shades are cool, but I do think that there are warm shades in there as well. And I feel like the Glam Face palette is overall warm shades. So I was hoping there would be some cooler tones kind of mixed in there because, I don't know, this is just, I guess I was just hoping for something a little bit more special. This is a little bit more ordinary. So as for breaking down the actual colors, the blush you can see is kind of like a warm peachy shade. It's a really nice neutral blush that's going to work well for a lot of people. The highlight though, I do think is a little bit too dark. It's just a little too gold. You can see that it's kind of got this peachy gold vibe to it as well, but it's pretty pigmented. So I personally would have preferred something a little bit lighter. And I think if it were a little bit cooler in tone, I think it would have, you know, kind of balanced that blush a little bit better. So this combination is going to work really well for somebody with warm skin tones, but cool and neutral skin tones, I feel like it's more lackluster, if that makes sense. As for the eyeshadow, I think it's a nice basic palette, but again, these are going to be warm neutrals. So we've got this champagne shade here with a touch of rose gold in it. It's a very pretty shade. Both of these sparkly shades, they can perform as a topper. You can put them on a little bit more densely packed to get a little bit more sparkle, but they are something that is going to work best as a topper. So you probably want another shade underneath, at least, you know, something light like this. So this one here is the transition shade, and you can see that this is going to be like a rosy brown kind of shade. So this is probably the coolest tone shade though in this palette. And then we have crease and smoke. And, you know, these are both going to be browns. You can see that crease is going to be a little bit warmer. There's a touch of red in there and a little bit of like a golden yellow. We've got smoke here, which is going to be a little bit cooler, but you still have those like reddish golden tones to it as well. So it's still going to keep it in the warm camp. And then this shade here, this outer corner one, is gonna, it really goes well with this highlighter. It's kind of like a little bit rosier, deeper version of the highlight. And you can see those like reddish tones when the light hits it. It's almost like a very soft firelight, you know, when you look at like a flame. It's like a soft muted version of that, in my opinion. So I think all of the colors are really beautiful. The blush formula is only okay. The other formulas are all fine. They're all nice. You know, they're not, I have to say, I did think that she might have had some of her creamier shades in here, but actually there aren't. Now, as for her eyeshadow shades in here, you know, I think they all perform fine. They, you know, live up to the NATASHA Denona formula. I was hoping for one of her like creamier metallic shades. I really like those. I didn't realize originally that these were both going to be more of the crystal sparkle topper formula, which is nice and gives it a more subdued look. But I wouldn't have minded seeing something a little bit more of a metallic in here as well. And yeah, I just feel like everything in here is pretty subdued except the highlight. I feel like the highlight's very, very blinding, and I tried very carefully not to put on too much. So I think it's an okay palette. It just wasn't what I expected. So, you know, I don't know. I wish it was a little bit cooler in tone, so you had that mix of cool and warm tones in there. And it's just a little bit more monochromatic. It's not what I would think of for glam. So it actually, I don't have the mini nude palette. I know people have said that the shadow colors are similar to that, and I can see that. I could see this being called a nude face palette instead of a glam face palette. Really, the only thing that's all that glam to me is the highlighter, which I think is just a little bit too intense for the rest of this palette. So I have to say it's okay, but if you didn't get it, I personally don't think you're missing out. So just a few product details. It is paraben free. It's not tested on animals, and it is 13 grams or 0.45 ounces. There's a 1.5 year shelf life on this. And I think I said this already. Yeah, made in Italy. So I think the actual packaging is nice. Let's take a look at the Glam Eye palette though. So in comparison, we got the Glam Eye palette versus the face palette. You can see just looking at this how much warmer this is. There's nothing like with a hint of gray in here. You know, you just don't have similar tones. Let's take a look at some of the warmer shades in here and see how they compare. So looking at this one, and this one right now, let's take a look here. So you can see that those three shades actually go very well with the same vibe of the face palette. But let's take a look at just a few random shades here. So we've got the first, these are just random shades from the first and second row. And you can see the difference in the vibe. You know, there's just, even though you've got some warmer tones in here, because of all of the other ones mixed in, the palette itself is more neutral, leaning cool. And this face palette here is really more of a light warm. So that, I guess that's really just my major gripe with it, is that it didn't, if it had been called something else, I would have had different expectations. But because it was called the Glam Face Palette, I was just expecting it to have a little bit more of a mix of some cooler shades in there. And yes, I saw the pictures in advance, but sometimes you can't really tell from the photos online versus what they look like in person. And I think they lean just a little bit warmer than what I was expecting from the photos. So that's it. So I hope this was helpful, and please let me know what you think if you pick this up, what your thoughts are on this palette, and thank you so much for tuning in. Have a great day and stay safe and healthy.